Tell us more about John Stones. Tell us more about that and what else is happening at this moment, Rob.
Well, look, John Stones is not out there training. In fact, let's look for him straight away so I can show you the other options that England have got in the absence of John Stones. Now, we know he has had an ankle problem since the final warm-up game against Iceland at Wembley on Friday night. He had to come off at half-time, might have gone off earlier. You're looking at Lewis Dunk as I speak to you right now. Lewis Dunk, if John Stones is not available, could be one of the first players to come in. And then it would be an extremely inexperienced England defensive centre-back partnership, wouldn't it, of Mark Gay and Lewis Dunk. The other alternative, of course, is Ezri Konsa. There's Joe Gomez as well. But what we're being told at the moment, what my sources are telling me, is that John Stones is ill. So his absence from training today is not related to his ankle injury that, of course, he's still trying to recover from. We did see him out training on the pitch yesterday, remember, in that open training session. He looked okay, he didn't have any strapping on his ankle, but of course we're not party to what's going on behind the scenes and what the medical reports are. What physio is he receiving? How is that ankle? His absence from training today is apparently because he is ill. But again, that raises questions. What are we? We are 4 days out from England's first game in Euro 2024. John Stones has started one Premier League game for Manchester City since the middle of March. He desperately needs full intensive training. He desperately needs game time. He was denied the game time at the weekend because of that ankle injury which forced him off at half-time. He's now not training with England. So we don't know what this illness is. We don't know how long it's going to continue for. But just say, for example, over the next couple of days, John Stones isn't able to train with England. Gareth Southgate will have to take a view about whether he is fit and possible and available. You're looking at shots of Mark Gay at the moment now, who is suddenly looking incredibly important in the heart of that England defence. He's only just gone to double figures in terms of England caps. He hasn't started many games for England. He's tended to be used off the bench. But remember, with Harry Maguire not here because of that ongoing calf problem, which means he wasn't fit to travel, couldn't play any part in the tournament. And now with real concerns over John Stones, Mark Gay could be England's senior centre-back to start the European Championships. It was a heck of a story in its own right. As I say, Lewis Dunk is another option. Ezri Konsa, who's been in outstanding form for Aston Villa, is another option. Konsa, though, has tended to be used by Gareth Southgate at right back in recent internationals, trying to show his versatility, because that's the position that Gareth Southgate felt he might need more cover. Suddenly it's looking like centre-back is the position where he might need most cover. So, just to reiterate, John Stones not out training with England this morning. We're told it's illness rather than any recurrence or because of any issue related to that ankle injury. The remaining 25 members of England's squad are out there on the grass.
Rob, Gareth Southgate's future, of course, remains a talking point, particularly in this sort of vacuum we're in before the tournament starts. Is that perhaps brought more into focus, though, by that news this morning from Manchester United, a club he's been linked with?
Absolutely, that is absolutely, that is significant. We can't see Gareth Southgate. Believe me, he is out there, but he's tucked behind the kind of screen that we're next to at the moment. But Gareth Southgate is out there taking a full part in England training, even though John Stones isn't. But yeah, look, the fact that we've heard overnight that Erik ten Hag is to remain as Manchester United manager would suggest that Gareth Southgate is not going to be the next Manchester United manager. But it's a little bit more nuanced than that. If you read what Kaveh Solokol is reporting, our chief reporter, from his contact, Erik ten Hag is still far from happy with the situation at Manchester United. He's not happy that they've been speaking to other candidates whilst carrying out this review, this end-of-season review, and he would like a contract extension. So there's still some negotiation to go between Manchester United and Erik ten Hag, clearly, and so that's going to take a bit of time. Gareth Southgate is one of the leading names that's been linked with the Manchester United job, should it become available. Remember, he told Bild, the big newspaper in Germany, yesterday, that he thinks, unless England win this European Championships, he cannot continue or will not be able to continue as England manager, one or the other. He either thinks he's going to get sacked or he might be ready to walk away. That's the implication of what he said. So potentially, at the end of this tournament, Gareth Southgate might be available for Manchester United or for any other club that wants him. And we know that he has strong ambitions to be an elite club manager. And Manchester United very much appeals to him. But that's complex as well, because Dan Ashworth, who he knows very well, who's a close friend, worked very closely with him at England, of course, and the FA. Dan Ashworth is not yet employed by Manchester United. There is still a significant legal case and tribunal going on to decide when Dan Ashworth can start as Manchester United's sporting director. So it's a very complex situation, but I think you have to say that because of the situation as it is now, with Erik ten Hag staying on, it looks increasingly unlikely that Gareth Southgate will be the next Manchester United manager. In fact, you can see him now because he's come out from behind that screen that we were talking about, and there is the England manager leading out the rest of the players as they head over for their second session. What you were watching there was a bit of a warm-up session. They're now heading across to the main pitch, where hopefully we'll see them get the balls out in a moment.
Yeah. We've heard the news about Stones. There's other key members of this team that need to get up to speed as well, though, isn't there, in the coming few days?
There absolutely is, and there are significant injury concerns still for this England squad. Even though the other 25 are out there on the grass, we only see them for the first 15 minutes of this training session. So we don't know how much all of them are going to be involved when that session becomes a little bit more intensive. And remember, this is their first real formal training session on German soil. The training session we saw yesterday was very fluffy. It was almost a PR exercise for UEFA and for the locals. They did a bit of head tennis. They didn't do any running. They did a bit of ball work, but it was very, very light for the hour that we saw them. Today will be much more intensive once the cameras are away from these England players. And we've talked a lot about Bukayo Saka, haven't we? Because, of course, he missed the final game of the season for Arsenal. We know that he is still far from match fit, you have to say. Bear in mind that he wasn't able to play any part in England's first warm-up game against Bosnia and Herzegovina because he wasn't fit enough. He hadn't been training at the right intensity levels. And he was only able to play 25 minutes in that final warm-up game against Iceland and struggled to make an impact, I think you have to say. So if Bukayo Saka is not available to start the game, my very strong feeling is that it would be the man from Chelsea who you're looking at right now, Cole Palmer, who has had an absolutely extraordinary season. Only Harry Kane has had more goal involvements in this squad than Cole Palmer in all competitions. He's outdone even Jude Bellingham after the extraordinary season that he's had with Real Madrid. Cole Palmer has beaten his numbers in terms of goals and assists. And so while we're looking at these players now, you can probably see Phil Foden, who's warming up with Cole Palmer, which is a nice little duo, isn't it? Two of England's key wide men doing a bit of ball work there. We expect Phil Foden to start, probably on the left wing, but if Saka isn't fit to start on the right wing, or Southgate decides not to risk him with the rest of the tournament coming up, Cole Palmer, you have to say, is probably the first in line, almost certain, I would suggest, to be the man who comes in for Bukayo Saka. And we'll just pan a little bit further left, Rob, because while we're talking about injury concerns, great to see Luke Shaw out on the grass again today. Remember, he hasn't played any football since the middle of February, the Manchester United man. So we shouldn't belittle these pictures that we're seeing now and the importance of him out there training. We saw him training yesterday, yes. This is the first time he will be involved in what is technically a full England training session. We don't know how much he's going to take part in that training session, but after his calf problems, when can he be used? Gareth Southgate has hinted that he might only be able to play a few minutes in the second game in Group C against Denmark. He isn't going to be considered, Southgate told us, for this opening game. But him trying to build up his match sharpness is really, really important from an England perspective.
Yeah. We're going to hear as well, Rob, from one of the players, and this is an astonishing story, an amazing rise over the course of the season, and we're going to hear from that player today, aren't we?
There he is, in the middle of your screen now, Adam Wharton, the 20-year-old Crystal Palace central midfielder. It's an extraordinary story. I can't wait to speak to him later on this afternoon, and you can see at the bottom of your screen the exact timings of when we will be hearing from Adam Wharton. But what a season he has had for Crystal Palace. I just want to put this into perspective for you. He made his England under-21s debut in March. That was his first game for the junior team. Suddenly, he made his England debut in those warm-up games, building in the lead up to this tournament, and then suddenly finds his name on the final squad of 26. He is, of course, an injury replacement for Declan Rice. There are one or two media outlets that are suggesting maybe, well, there he is with Declan Rice, who's just putting his arm around him as he comes up there. I think it would be a long shot for Adam Wharton to start England's opening group game against Serbia on Sunday night. But if anything happens to Declan Rice, that man there is next in line as England's only real other defensive midfield option. And of course, that could be key later on in the tournament. If Gareth Southgate, as he's tended to do against the better teams, wants to play two defensive midfielders against the better sides when he gets into the knockout stages, Adam Wharton is the only other option he's got, really, unless he decides that maybe Conor Gallagher could drop deeper and play in that role, which is a possibility. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to speak to the Crystal Palace man who has risen so far so quickly. He will do his first interview as an England player at a major tournament later on this afternoon. Stay with us on Sky Sports News.